Shadows of the Will. It began on an ordinary Sunday morning in Willow Ridge, the kind of morning that smelled of fresh coffee and quiet promises, when the news spread like a tremor across town. Eleanor and Samuel Radford, the beloved pillars of the Radford family, had died in a violent car crash on Route 7. No one believed it at first. The Radfords were invincible, wealthy, respected, the roots of a sprawling family tree that touched nearly every corner of Willow Ridge. But by noon, the tragedy was confirmed. A blown tire, a slick road, a single moment that shattered everything. Their death wasn't just a loss. It was the ignition of a storm. By Monday afternoon, every branch of the Radford family gathered at the old estate, a majestic, ivy-covered mansion that Eleanor adored. It sat on a hill overlooking the river, now cast in a heavy, unsettling quiet. Inside the mansion, the air pulsed with tension. There were 5 primary relatives called to hear the will. 1. William Radford, age 44, successful, smug, obsessed with control. 2. Serena Hale, 38, elegant, sharp, and dangerously ambitious. 3. The Carter siblings, Emma, 32, and Joseph, 29, kind-hearted but always overshadowed by louder voices. 4. And then there was the outsider, Luke Maddox, 30, a gentle, modest paramedic who had been raised by Eleanor and Samuel for 3 years after his parents died when he was a child. He wasn't blood, but he was family to them. At least, that's what everyone thought. The lawyer, Mr. Whitlock, arrived at dusk with a leather briefcase and the kind of expression a man wears when he knows he's about to detonate a room. The will was long, detailed, and full of surprises, but nothing prepared them for the final line. And the Radford estate, including all land, assets, and properties, shall be inherited by Luke Maddox. For a full 10 seconds, the room froze. Then chaos erupted. Serena's voice cut the silence first. This must be a mistake. He isn't even a Radford by blood. William slammed his hand on the table. He manipulated them. He took advantage. Emma and Joseph exchanged stunned looks, unsure what to believe. But Luke, quiet, stunned, overwhelmed, sat frozen, the weight of the unexpected inheritance pressing down on him like a mountain. He had loved Eleanor and Samuel, but he never wanted their fortune. He wanted them. But the Radford legacy wasn't gold. It was a fuse waiting to burn. Rumors began swirling, accusations, old wounds reopened. Someone spread whispers around town that Luke had been the one driving behind Eleanor and Samuel that day, as if he could have prevented the accident. Someone else hinted that the will had been altered. Luke found hateful notes on the windshield of his truck. And then strange things began happening. Documents in the estate office went missing. A break-in occurred at the attorney's office, and one night, someone tried to start a fire near the Radford barn. A warning, not a mistake. The investigation revealed a truth that turned the family inside out. Samuel and Eleanor had updated their will 2 months before the crash, after discovering that William had been siphoning money from the family trust, and Serena had secretly been pushing them to sell the estate to a corporate developer. Emma and Joseph had been loyal, but scared to stand up to the others. Luke was the only one who visited them weekly, helped them with groceries, fixed things around the house, and simply listened to them. They hadn't left him everything out of pity or favoritism. They left it to him because they trusted his heart. But that only made the others angrier. The tension reached its breaking point during the final meeting with Mr. Whitlock. Voices rose, accusations flew. William shouted that he would drag Luke to court for years. Serena threatened to leak personal information. Joseph finally snapped and yelled at everyone to stop tearing their family apart. And then Luke stood. He didn't shout. He didn't accuse. He simply said, "If Eleanor and Samuel taught me anything, it's that a legacy means nothing if it destroys the people it was meant to protect. I don't want the estate to become a battlefield." A silence settled over the room. Luke announced he would divide the estate fairly. A portion of the assets would go to each family branch. Part of the land would be preserved as Eleanor's beloved garden sanctuary. The Radford mansion would be turned into a community center and emergency clinic, honoring Samuel's passion for helping others, and the rest he would donate in their name. At first, everyone resisted, But then something unexpected happened. Emma started crying softly. Joseph nodded in agreement. William, proud, stubborn William, slumped into a chair, realizing he had spent years chasing power he didn't even truly want. Serena, for the first time, lowered her eyes and whispered, "I'm sorry." The storm passed. Slowly, painfully, but it passed. Months later, the Radford Community Center opened its doors, with Luke cutting the ribbon as the town watched. Children played in the gardens Eleanor planted decades ago. A small plaque near the entrance read, "In memory of Samuel and Eleanor Radford, whose love built more than a family, it built a community." As Luke stood on the hill overlooking the river, he felt the wind move gently through the grass, as if the Radfords were still there, proud, peaceful, and finally at rest. Their legacy didn't end in tragedy. It blossomed into something greater than any of them imagined. And Luke, the quiet boy they once saved, became the man who saved their family in return. Shadows of the Will, the fault lines of blood. The Radford Community Center had been open for just 3 months when the past, that quiet ghost that never stays buried, began to stir again. Luke Maddox walked across the stone path Eleanor once tended, carrying a box of medical supplies. Children laughed in the garden, the river shimmered in the distance, and everything seemed peaceful on the surface. But beneath the calm, old wounds in the Radford family had begun to reopen. It started small, a rumor whispered at a cafe, a sideways comment at the town diner, a suspicious look exchanged at the grocery store. People said that William Radford had been attending secret meetings with a group of real estate investors from out of town. Joseph had been disappearing for days at a time. Serena, quieter than ever, had stopped attending community events. And Emma Carter, the gentle soul who once held the siblings together, had grown tense, guarded, almost afraid. Luke noticed everything, but he didn't push. He knew anger in families moved like an underground fire. You see the smoke long before the flames. One night, as he was locking the clinic doors, Emma approached him with her hands trembling. "Luke, I think something terrible is about to happen." She handed him a folder, thick and heavy, filled with documents older than they looked. Land deeds, old letters, maps of the estate, and at the very top, a copy of Eleanor and Samuel's original will from 30 years ago. Luke frowned. "Where did you get this?" Emma's voice cracked. "From Serena's attic. You need to see what's inside." He opened the last page, and the ground seemed to tilt under him. The original will listed another heir, a name Luke had never heard before. Adeline Moreau, granddaughter through Eleanor's first marriage. Luke felt his pulse spike. Eleanor had a first marriage? Emma nodded, tears forming. They hid it from everyone. The family didn't approve of her first husband, and when he died, Adeline was sent to live with relatives in France. Eleanor never spoke of her again. Luke stared at the forgotten heir's name, written in elegant, looping handwriting. "Why are you showing me this now?" Emma swallowed hard. "Because she's coming here, Luke. She's already in the US. Serena found her months ago. William contacted her. They've been planning something that could take everything away." The truth hit Luke like a blow. The Radford family hadn't healed. They were preparing for war. A next week unfolded like a gathering storm. Adeline Moreau arrived in Willow Ridge on a cold Thursday morning. She stepped off the train in a long beige coat, her posture royal, her expression unreadable. She was in her early 40s, poised, elegant, impossibly composed. The resemblance to Eleanor was unmistakable. As she entered the community center for the first time, every eye turned toward her. Even the children fell silent. Luke walked up to her, unsure what to expect. "Miss Moreau," he said quietly. "Welcome." She watched him with eyes the color of storm clouds. "You are the man who took what should have been mine." Luke steadied himself. "I didn't take anything. Eleanor chose wrong," Adeline cut sharply. "And I intend to correct her mistake." Those words hung heavy in the air. Behind her, William and Serena emerged from the shadows like loyal soldiers behind their newly discovered monarch. Joseph lingered farther away, guilt written across his face. The factions were clear now. Those who wanted the Radford legacy back, and those who wanted peace. Over the next days, the town turned into a battlefield of whispers. Adeline hired attorneys. William rallied supporters. Serena dug through archives for anything that could weaken Luke's claim. Joseph avoided Luke entirely, torn between loyalty and morality. Emma tried desperately to hold the family together, but even she could feel it slipping like sand through her fingers. Meanwhile, the community center, once a place of hope, became overshadowed by fear. One evening, as Luke finished organizing medical files, Adeline walked in alone, her expression softer than before. "I wish things were different," she said quietly. "I don't blame you for Eleanor's choices, but I am her blood, and the estate is part of my identity." Luke looked at her with calm sincerity. "The estate is more than a building. It's a responsibility. It can heal people or destroy them. I'm trying to choose the first." Adeline hesitated, but before she could speak, William stormed inside. "Adeline, don't listen to him. He's manipulating you. That's what he does." Luke took a breath. "William, if we keep fighting, we'll lose the very thing we're trying to honor." William's voice rose with years of resentment. "You don't get to preach to me. You don't get to speak like you're one of us. You got everything handed to you, everything I worked for." "No," Luke said quietly. "I lost people too. Maybe not the same way, but I know what grief feels like." William froze. Something flickered in his eyes, envy, rage, but also exhaustion. He turned and walked out, slamming the door behind him. Adeline followed, caught between two worlds she didn't understand. The breaking point came a week later during the public hearing about the estate. The town hall overflowed with residents. Reporters lined the back wall. The air was thick with expectation, fear, and curiosity. Adeline stood on one side, flanked by William and Serena. Luke stood on the other, alone but steady. The judge reviewed the documents. Hours passed. Arguments rose and fell like crashing waves. Adeline's voice cracked at one point. "I was abandoned by a family I never knew. I deserve closure. I deserve recognition." Luke felt her pain. He didn't hate her. He saw a woman robbed of her identity, trying to reclaim her place. In the final minutes of the hearing, the judge asked Luke, "What do you want, Mr. Maddox?" He could have defended the estate. He could have fought for legal ownership. He could have accused the others of manipulation, but he didn't. Instead, he stepped toward Adeline and spoke directly to her. "I want peace, for you, for them, for this town. Eleanor's legacy wasn't meant to tear us apart. It was meant to give us something better. So take it. Take the estate. I'll divide the remaining assets like I did before. And I'll continue running the community center independently. I don't need the mansion or the title of heir. I just need to honor the people who raised me." The room went silent. Adeline's face went pale, not with victory, but with disbelief. "You're giving it up?" she whispered. Luke nodded. "I'm giving you the chance to become the Radford you never got to be." Tears slipped down her cheeks. William looked stunned. Serena's jaw tightened, guilt flickering for the first time. Emma sobbed quietly into Joseph's shoulder. The judge approved the arrangement. No more battles, no more threats, no more war. Months later, Luke walked through the community garden as the sun dipped low. The estate behind him now belonged to Adeline, but she had honored Luke in return. She restored Eleanor's garden. She opened the mansion for public events. She kept Luke as the director of the community center. William and Serena, humbled, slowly rebuilt their relationships with each other. Joseph began volunteering at the clinic. Emma, always the heart of the family, spent her evenings helping children with homework in the garden. And Adeline, once a stranger, became part of Willow Ridge. One warm evening, she approached Luke as he tended to the roses Eleanor once planted. "I used to think inheritance was about property," she said softly, "but you showed me it's about responsibility, about compassion. Eleanor chose you because you had those things before any of us did." Luke smiled gently. "She chose all of us in the end, even if she didn't say it out loud." Adeline exhaled, the last traces of bitterness leaving her expression. "Thank you," she whispered, "for saving this family." Luke looked out at the river, glowing in the sunset. "I didn't save it," he said quietly. "We saved each other." And for the first time since Eleanor and Samuel's accident, the Radford legacy felt whole again. Not because of a will, not because of ownership, but because the fractures in their hearts had finally begun to heal. And Willow Ridge, small, stubborn, beautiful Willow Ridge, carried that healing forward for generations to come.